Sorry, guys, had a little technical difficulty there, and I was trying to determine um, what mic setup I wanted, and so on. And I thought I wanted to wear the earbuds, and I changed my mind. I didn't. So on. I thought I wanted to wear them. Oh boy, may have some Wi-Fi problems tonight. We've been having Wi-Fi issues around here. Uh, I'm noticing a lag also. So I'm gonna, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna wait here a couple of minutes and see if we can get anybody else on. We'll get started. We'll get into the meat of this thing. All right. So uh, sit back. I got to put it right here. Sit back, pour you a cold one, get you a bourbon like I always have, and sit back and enjoy the show. I got the fire going. I got the Christmas tree up, and we're going to talk about bullies tonight. Let me just double check, make sure. All right, the audio is working. Everything is good. So I'm also sitting here watching my Oklahoma Sooners play like a bunch of dogs at uh, at LSU, down 34-17 as far as where I have it. I rewound it a little bit earlier because I missed a play and I want to see what happens. So I'm watching OU get beat by LSU right now, but I know a lot of you guys with family, on holidays, things like that. Well, I thought people might need a little bit of downtime, maybe want to maybe want to talk dogs a little bit. I decided to go ahead and have the podcast tonight. Um, and just for a little bit of change of pace, but I certainly understand there are people who are doing a lot of other things than just wanting to watch a live podcast at 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday. Also, just a lot of you may wonder, Joel Marabay had a work issue, ended up having to work a double shift at the hospital. Um, some people, on the holidays they'll call in. They don't want to work their shift. They didn't get off, so they're supposed to be at work, and so he ended up having to work a double. So he ended up having to cancel tonight, which is why we kind of have the change in title, kind of have a change in what we're going to do on the show. But we'll reschedule him, and we'll get him on the show. So uh, Joel's a cool dude. I really like him. I enjoy his platform as well, the No Bullish podcast. And so look forward to having him on when we can have him on. Right. So let's see. Oh yeah, well, shows me because I'm on. So all right, it's 6 minutes after, so let's get into the crux of the title, the bully civil war. Um, for those of you that are not intimately familiar with the American bully community and the goings on and the history and so on like that, there are, and I will, And let me set this up. This is not unusual um, in animal breeding. Okay, you always have you always have factions of people um, that want to stick to the way the animal which was originally conceived. Okay, and then you have other people who want to constantly push, I guess, for a lack of a better way to say it, constantly push the envelope past what I would say is what the animal was intended and envisioned um, to be, and past its, and in some cases past its physical boundaries in what is good for the animal. Okay, and whenever I come on and I talk and the things that I'm going to talk about, I'm always going to talk about what is beneficial for the animal, for the lives that we're responsible for, and the longevity of and health of those lives that we create. Okay, and uh, not about egos and show ring success and and things like that, because uh, throughout history, man's, and when I say man, meaning humanity, our egos have destroyed more things that were already good, um, for the zest of making it better than what we think it ought to be, right? And um, so we're going to touch on that. I want to touch on that a little bit. Um, so in the so stay warm. Yeah, a little chilly. So during the American Civil War, of course, we had the North and we have the South. So let's call the old school bully people the South, and let's call the new school modern bully people the North. Okay. Now, as we know, in the American Civil War, the North won. Okay. Um, whether or not that whether or not that same scenario plays out in the future, I guess is to be seen. But as dog breeds go, and animals in general, the thing that differentiates them, as a breed is their unique appearance or their phenotype, the physical expression of the animal as seen by the human eye. Okay, uh, and also in some particular ways, how that particular excuse me, how that particular animal moves. Um, the American bully has a very distinct phenotype as written in the original standard. Um, Man, I might get crucified for this, but I believe as written back in 2004, um, and revised in 2014. Um, and we finally got some illustrations. I don't know, maybe here a couple 3 years ago. But the thing with and the thing with standards, and they are written that way for various reasons. But more importantly, you don't want a standard so strict that there's not some allowances for personal preference and creativity. Okay, So that's what that, but that's not really so much, what, well, it kind of is and kind of isn't what we're going to talk about, is that room for personal creativity. Okay. So, but you have a lot of people that believe that the dog um, should um, should remain as intended. Um, the pit bull staffy mix, right? Um, now, as we know, it takes three. So, and here's the thing that I've always had a little bit of an issue with. It takes three dogs to make a breed. You can't create a breed with just two dogs, with two different breeds of dog, right? And so you have to have at least three breeds. So the bulldog, whether that be the old English bulldog, American bulldog, whatever variation of bulldog, has always been in the breed somewhere. Okay, and to and so we might as well just get over that fact and the consternation and the gnashing of teeth and everything about the bulldog being part of the American bully. American bully is a bull breed. Bull breeds do have bulldog in them, just like anything else. I mean, 200 years ago they got bulldog in them, and how those phenotypes are expressed, that it's just in there, okay? And so most likely, pit bull terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, and oldies, old English bulldogs, right? Most likely are what made up the breed, initially starting out. Okay. And then there's been other things added. And here's the thing, it's been okay to add those other breeds because the stud books, the registry is not closed. And so my issue with that now has always been the fact that people added dogs, F1 dogs, uh, you know, to the breed without disclosing that, i.e., hanging papers, and which makes it then difficult to breed in a lot of ways because you think you're breeding to one thing and you're actually breeding to another. What's up, Furman? And so I just wish everyone would have been honest. Okay. That's really been my big thing. And when we get into this, look, I'm not going to say things don't come down to, as with most anything, things come down to personal preference. But one thing I do briefly want to talk about. So the National Dog Show was on TV on Thursday. A lot of you, I'm sure, they have dogs that watch Westminster dog shows and things like that. Okay, so think about it in your mind's eye when you watch those dogs. Okay, look at how those dogs are put together. Okay. Look at their conformation. All right. Look at their shoulder sets. Look at their rear angulation. I mean, dogs are dogs. Horses are horses. They're built very similarly. Okay. And in a lot of ways, although they're different animals. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll kind of, you know, the old style American bully has often been described as a pit bull on steroids. Okay. And broad head, tight skin, you know, medium size. I'd say, I mean, of course, there's always, been when it's always kind of been the division of sizes of pockets and standards and XLs and so on. But a tight skinned dog with a broad chest, short, closely coupled, um, being ideal with a broad head with some angularity to it. Okay, and so we'll kind of get into we'll kind of get into that. But just think of in a lot of ways, right? A pit bull, the pit bull on steroids, right? More muscle, broader um, type dog, right? And that dog was, yeah, he was a good, sorry, guys, it was comments. He was a good looking pug, wasn't he, Furman? Uh, Good looking pug. But so the American Bully for a long time, again, there and here's the thing, development of a breed. The dogs always had some variation, and there haven't always been, I mean, you're going to have dogs that don't fit the standard that people have, that people breed and they do the thing. So what I'm trying to talk about is kind of where this breed is going, and is it really the best thing for the breed? And so we have two factions really at play right now: the South, the old school, the people that like the old school dogs. And when I talk about old school dogs, I call them legacy blood dogs. Those dogs are dogs that predate Dax and Miyagi, which have always kind of been of questionable parentage. Okay, um, Dax most likely, his most likely sire was an old English bulldog. Now, was that illegal? No, was not illegal, but it was not disclosed on ABKC paperwork, his breedings or anything like that, right? And so hanging papers, um, and so you know, kind of one of those things. Same way with Miyagi, right? Questionable parentage, hanging papers, and so on. So, and look, not to say that it did happen, not to say the same stuff didn't happen with the legacy blood dogs. It did. Okay. But the issue is that really is that Dax really changed the breed. Um, Brought in more of a broader bulldog type head. Yeah, I'm with you there, Furman. Um, Brought in more of a bulldog head, broader shoulders, more muscling, thicker bone. Of course, those things coming from most likely an old English bulldog. Okay. So, fast forward, let's see, Dax was like 10 years ago, roughly, somewhere in that time frame. So, back in the day, prior to 2000 and 2014, you know, that's what Dave Wilson said, the president of the ABKC. That's what Dave Wilson said that the American Bully ought to resemble, is a pit bull on steroids. He's on video for saying that very thing. So, it takes a long time to develop a breeding program. And so, as a registry, and the leadership, and especially in this case, because we are a breed where the registry sets the standard for the dog, not a national breed club. Okay. In other breeds, they have breed clubs that set the standards for the dog. The registry does just that, functions as a record keeping arm for the breed club. Okay. Ours is different. The registry controls everything in terms of the development of the standard, registrations, marketing for the breed, the whole 9 yards, right? So they carry a lot of weight in what the dog is going to look like. Well, so things have always kind of sway or swung um, based on the way and the things that Dave said he envisioned the way the dog was supposed to look. And so in 2014, if my dates are correct, and if not, I'm sure somebody will let me know. Okay, but Dave mentioned that his ideal dog, it may have been a little bit after 2014, but then, was Muscle Tones Magoo. Okay. So Magoo, bigger dog, more bone, a little bit rounder head, a shorter muzzle, a little bit more of a movement towards um, the bulldog side and away from the pit bull on steroids. Okay. So it's kind of been a gradual movement, right? So from, roughly 2008, 2000, let's say 2004, 2024, in the 90s, kind of when the breed was starting to be developed. But for the last, you know, let's see, from around 2000, okay, so 2000 to 2014, it was pit bull on steroids, and then it shifted to Muscle Tones Magoo, which is not a pit bull on steroids, much bigger dog, heavier head, type dog. And so, okay. So more and more of those type of dogs began to be bred. The dogs got larger chests, muscles, chest spread, heads. Heads began to morph and change as people started breeding those types of dogs. While a a whole bunch of people, they still love their pit bull on steroids dogs. They still love that look. Um, and so, that kind of started the split, right? Um, and so from 2014 to about 2019, probably, when Warrior of God Samson won nationals. Okay. So Samson came in, big dog, big standard dog, in excess of 100 pounds. Heard him described as being a Cadillac, long in the back, right? But big head, big, just a whole lot of dog, right? And it's almost like, the ground just shook under this dog. The whole world kind of changed, with Samson. And look, I'm not saying that you won't have you don't have a genetic sport that comes along, every now and then, really, just kind of really shakes things up. But it was a thing of, wow, we got to get bigger. Wow, we got to do this. Wow, we got to do that. And there's this big push, really, right now in our community, and the word extreme gets used constantly. There's a push towards the extreme, and now Dave is always extreme. Well, the American Bully was always meant to be as extreme as possible without falling apart. Okay. Well, here's the problem. Um, problem with that is that there are a lot of people that breed dogs that don't know um, how far is too far before a dog has fallen apart. Okay, and we'll get into that. Um, no, Eric, we don't need an XXL class. That's the problem. We don't need to add another class just to codify people that are breeding dogs outside the standard. What they're doing is they're breeding dogs whose conformation puts the dog's life at risk. Okay, and that's the issue that I have with Extreme and with this push in our breed to try to make these dogs bigger and bigger and bigger. And where does it stop? Right? You have the people, we have the South who believe that the old school, the legacy blood dogs were big enough. There were still big dogs. Okay. 100-pound dogs, 90-pound dogs that are all legacy blood dogs. Hell, I'm getting ready to breed to one early next year. 17 inches tall, 95 pounds, all legacy blood dog, right? So it wasn't that the dogs were small. Um, it, and I will tell you guys, I'm honestly, I'm a bit at a loss as to why it was, but I can tell you, most likely what happened is that you know someone with a dog like that started winning in the show ring. It was new. It was, somebody liked the look of it or whatever the case might be. And, of course, the show ring with a lot of people, it's not unlike a lot of breeders. It's monkey see, monkey do, right? And so they started falling in line. So somebody did this, so somebody did this, and it kind of just started going that direction. And shortening the muzzle is the worst thing that we can do to uh, and you're right, Eric. Shortening the muzzle is the worst thing that we can do to this breed. These dogs, as big as they are, um, as much muscle, dense muscle they have, and so on, they need to be able to breathe as much as possible. Muscle uses a lot of oxygen. Okay. And so these dogs need to be able to breathe. And by shortening the muzzle, which is and this goes for a lot of breeds. They French bulldog, the pug, a bunch of breeds. They shorten the muzzle, shorten the muzzle, shorten the muzzle, shorten the muzzle, and to the point where the damn dog is a flat faced dog. It doesn't have a muzzle. I'm telling you, the American bullies, the muzzle, it's already short enough. Um, when I got into the breed. They were talking, two, yeah, and granted, everybody's fingers are different, right? But average, two and a half finger muzzle, put it up against the stop, two fingers across that, that's how long they want the muzzle to be, right? Now they're talking one and a half, you know. The muzzle on these dogs does not need to get shorter. Um, well, you must be talking, Eric. You must be Eric. Um, said he's a fan of 140-pound males with a three-finger muzzle. Is that too far out of standard? You must be talking about an XL, Eric, correct? See, and that's the thing. That's the thing, guys, about the standard. The only specifications that the standard really makes in terms of size is just height. It doesn't say how much the dog ought to weigh. The only, really that I'm aware of, the only weight restrictions that there are is with the French Bulldog. And so, so I would think I don't know, Eric. I'm at a disadvantage in that I don't know that much about the XL. I wouldn't think so. Um, I wouldn't think that that's too far out of standard. I mean, again, as long as the dog fits the standard as published in terms of height requirements and everything. I mean, then it falls, kind of falls within the standard. But my big concerns are in this push, in the push for extreme. It's the effects on the structure of the dog, we're starting to see. So talk about the headpiece. The biggest thing, obviously, is the shortening of the muzzle. That is obviously a breathing issue that then relates to because of the lack of the ability to oxygenate the blood properly. That leads to cardiac issues, which leaves the dog unable to cool itself, then which leads to deaths, right? And so, dog needs to have that length of muzzle to be able to cool the air as it comes in before it goes into the dog's lungs and so on. The cooling makes the oxygen denser. Um, so, um, so the shortening of the muzzle is the big thing. The other thing, and this is just an appearance thing. It really has no detrimental effects on the dog, but it's the change of the skull shape from one of a head with the legacy blood dogs that have angularity to their heads to a dog that has a round face. Okay, their heads are round. Um, Basically, they look like a bulldog. Okay, with cropped ears, and we're just see that constantly all over in in our quote unquote modern bullies today. Um, I personally don't like it. Um, my boy Buster, I love him, and he is a 95% old school dog, but he has 4 crosses to Dax in there, and whether or not uh, his head is a little bit his head is a little bit rounder than I would prefer for my taste. It's not bulldog bad. It really, I guess, it really is kind of somewhere in the middle. But I do really prefer a dog with a little bit more angularity to its head. Um, so even Buster, as much as people love his headpiece and everything, it's not my ideal headpiece. It is in size and cheeks and everything, but it's a little rounder. Uh, no, sorry guys, I forgot to plug in the laptop. My apologies. It's getting a low battery signal on the PC, and must come unplugged possibly. Let's see. Switch it up here. All right, we're good. We're charging. So, anyway, so I'm back. So that was headpiece. But then we have so we come to the front of the dog, and the big focus now is on chest spread. Okay, so the width between the front legs, the inside of the front legs. Okay, that width there, chest spread. Okay, so big. Have these stack offs at these shows, and stack off competitions and everything, and it's all about these dogs with these big chest spreads. But so we have a bunch of dogs that are getting wider, but overall they're not getting, their structure is not necessarily changing up top. Okay, the shoulder, the shoulder set, the rib cage things. The dog is not getting necessarily bigger to a chain, you know, to accommodate this wider chest spread. So when the front legs, when the shoulders come down, they should make a perfect um, H, basically a perfect H, right? Straight um, as opposed that shoulder set coming straight down, we're seeing it come out and be more oblong. So out, kind of coming out of the socket, if you will, as opposed to straight down. And what's going to happen is that sorry guys, I'm back. Had it got kicked off the internet for some reason. But anyway, this shoulder set is really the biggest concerning issue, I feel like, as far as the dog goes, is because the shoulder is not being set correctly, and these the shoulders coming out like this and kind of bowing down, as opposed to coming out of the shoulder socket and coming down. Okay, so like a horse, you know, I mean, it's like you don't see bow-legged. I mean, you don't see bow-legged horses, right? You didn't see any bow-legged dogs where the shoulders, you know, came out and went out right before they came down at the National Dog Show. The you know, if you want more width in the dog, then you have to breed the dog to uh, have overall width, not this exaggerated shoulder. And so, yeah, I'm back, Eric. Um, so this shoulder set will lead to uh, physiological issues with the you know, with the dogs, and they will break down right over time. And with the and then the other super really big issue is that, you know, this push for for mass, right? Um, a dog that was 17 inches, 17 and a half inches, 18-inch dog, weighing 85, 90 pounds, 3 years ago was a classic, or I'm sorry, 3 years ago was a standard dog. Now it's a classic. So it's like, okay, I mean, just how big do these dogs have to get? You know, um, skeletal structure, and of course, you know, more bone, more density of bone, size of bone, things like that, on the skeletal structure and everything will help. But we're even pushing the mass past what the skeletal structure can maintain long term, right? Again, I get back to it's like the difference between, you can almost look at this like the difference between bodybuilders from Schwarzenegger's area, the 70s, okay, 70s, 80s time frame, um, to the bodybuilders of today. Guys like Rich Piana, some of those, his name just comes to mind, but those guys make, Schwarzenegger look small compared to his heyday in terms of the amount of muscle that they pack on their frames. Okay, Schwarzenegger, Frank Zane, um, Franco Colombo. Can't think of a bunch of those guys' names. It's not really that. It's not really that important. Lou Ferrigno. Um, those guys from back in the 70s and 80s, while they uh, admittedly, some of those guys use steroids and things like that. Um, not being used and that's really not the point. It's just the guys of today are much more massive, right? But their overall frames really haven't changed that much, right? And so they pack all this muscle on and everything. They pack all this weight on, and so on. And most of these guys don't make it past the age of 40, much less the age of 50. Ronnie Coleman, I think, is an exception. I think he's in his 50s, early 50s, but he's basically crippled. He can barely get around. Um, the other big thing to really be concerned about with, and probably even more importantly, not probably, really more importantly than just the skeletal issues, okay, is that the size of the heart's not changing. You have the same size heart that you did 10 years ago, but yet we're packing all this mass and everything on these dogs and expecting the dog to still, live the same, hopefully live the same age. Well, our dogs aren't living as long as they used to. It used to be, normal for these dogs to live 10, 12 years. Now it's on a lot of these types of dogs that I'm talking about, um, lucky to get 8 to 10, if you get that, you know. And my concern is absolutely 100% about the dog. And look, I like a big, muscly, masculine looking dog as much as the next guy in a lot of ways, right? It's They're cool looking. Okay, I get it. Okay, but you can go too far. Okay, and that's where this war, um, if you will, if you're in the community, you're on social media, it's constantly being talked about. Um, there's a lot of people a lot of people that really don't like the direction that things are headed, and and I I hear a lot more talk about health, um, about breeding more responsibly, than I used to. When I was say 2 years back, and I think that's great. I think that there's some other registries that are kind of coming along. They've been around for a while, but starting to see participation increase. That I say specialized, but we're really developed because um, when your legacy blood dog, if you will, in a lot of ways becomes obsolete, and you go to shows, and there's really no longer a home for your dog to be shown, then what do you do? Do you keep dragging, your dog to these shows knowing that you don't stand a chance of winning, or do you do something else? And so, these other registries appreciate a dog that would be something that you might see on the national stage. A dog well constructed, a dog with good conformation, with good movement, with like I said, with a correct, efficient structure. Um, the American Bully is extreme when compared to other breeds, anyway. Okay, but we keep wanting, and I say we is a large part of the community. There are certain factions that want to keep pushing the envelope to make this dog bigger, more massive, more muscular, um, more looking like a bulldog. And I'm just part of it is like, guys, if you want a bulldog, just get you a bulldog, crop the ears, and go on down the road. Get you an oldie, crop the ears, go on down the road. But don't take don't take the American, what I consider to really to be the American Bully, and then go jack it up. You know, um, don't like it. Not a big fan. You know, I guess if I had to, pick which side I'm on. You know, I'm in the Civil War. I'm in the South. You know, um, and so um, I still go to shows. Thankfully, do still have some success. Buster just became a champion over the weekend. Um, I mean, he's every much a. There's no question about when you see him what he is. He's 17 inches and he's 85 pounds. Um, and, but I mean, he's very, very compact. So that 85 pounds is, I mean, it's pretty impressive on his very compact frame. He's very short backed. Um, but so far, my dogs have done pretty good, even though I still favor. And so let me say this: this is what, in my mind, this is what has happened. There was a time um, where really when kind of Dax started to really gain traction and things, that people would breed a little bit of their Dax, a little bit of Dax to their old school, to their legacy blood dogs, and that really kind of produced a good, really middle of the road kind of dog, right? A little bit bigger head, a little bit bigger frame, bone, muscle mass, so on. Okay, so took the dog a little bit further. Um, Even though there were a lot of people back then that didn't even like that. Okay. Um, And then as time went by, of course, the Dax dogs became more popular, became more popular. So then people, what do? They start line breeding it. They start inbreeding it. They start doing, what people tend to always do. Um, they get the inbreeding coefficients real high. They keep, they make it 4 times this, 5 times this, 6 times this, without really understand the consequences in a lot of ways of what they're doing to the dogs. So then we get into, Dak's offspring, grandkids, things like that with Rocco, with Grim, with, a lot of these same dogs. We get into the same thing. It kind of keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Well, nowadays you have, let's just call them, roughly like 80% Dax dogs, say like in the first 5, 6 generations of the pedigree, and maybe still only 20% of the legacy blood dogs, if that. Okay. Nobody, is bringing the quality traits of the legacy blood dogs up forward in their pedigrees in any respect. They're basically just leaving those dogs completely behind. And I feel like they do that to their detriment. A lot of the old dogs, that's where the athleticism, the movement, the health, the longevity, those things that the breed was known for. That's where, that's the key. That's where those traits lie. Is in the old style dogs. And so um, I'm a guy that, here at Dubtown Bullies, in my personal preference is a high percentage legacy blood dog with a very mild percentage of Dax blood dogs in there for that middle of the road look, what I would call the modern look, not the old look, not the new look, but the modern look bully. The modern look bully really came about when West Coast Gotti met Razor's Edge. Okay, so the guys out on the West Coast, they, I won't say that the East Coast didn't do it, but the West Coast brought in more of the bulldog mix into the mix of things, right? And so when you took that and you took that to the Razor's Edge dogs, again, you got a little bit of a blending. You got the bigger West Coast Gotti dogs, the change in the head shape and everything, back to the original Edge dogs, and then bam, you had a more modern, unique look to the American Bully. And so that's where I kind of ride, as I ride right down the middle of that lane, right? And let's see. When measuring the muzzle, do we go from basically eyes to tip of nose, or the start of the nose? Also, okay. So Eric will address the first thing. So you go from what is called the stop, and that is where the front part of the skull here meets where the base of the nose joins, where it abuts up to the skull. That's called the stop. We go from there, obviously, then out to the point of the nose. That's how you measure the muzzle. I think diet has a lot to do uh, these days with the length of life of the dogs, and so that's why a lot of people starting to feed raw more often, or are starting to learn more about which kibbles are better, so on. Um, kibble by and large is not the best thing in the world for your dogs. But we need I mean, it's convenient. It's calories, it's nutrition, but it does create um, stress on the dog. There's a lot of additives and things in kibble that's manufactured in the United States. I would recommend to anybody that's that's feeding kibble to look at it. Inukshuk is manufactured in Canada, is in a non-GMO facility, and they do not spray their dog food with a bunch of the chemicals and additives and things like that that the dog foods manufactured here in the United States do. Um, it's a high, as good as kibble can be. It's a high quality kibble. It's expensive, yes. Um, so, but we feed it here along with other kibbles. But and I've done things on dog food before. And then there've been other people that do things on dog food before. But learn to read dog food labels. Okay, just one tip that I'll give you: it's dog food labels are just exactly like human food labels in that the ingredients on the back are listed in order of concentration. So whatever comes first is what makes up the most of that kibble. And then it goes in descending order. The key to that, though, is when you look at packaging and things like that, it's marketed, right? So pay attention to bags and so on. Anything that is listed after salt on the list of ingredients are only trace amounts, okay, in that bag. So you'll see bags of kibble that have blueberries and carrots and this and that, all over the bag and so on, and give you the impression, right, that it's got that stuff in it. Well, it does have that stuff in it, right? But it's listed after salt, which means there are only trace amounts of that stuff. There's nothing that says that these people have to be honest about, um, what's going on in the dog food. Okay. So, but I get back to, I don't think that this new version of the American Bully, let's call it, okay, this push for extreme, this push for mass, um, I really, really don't believe the dog can survive it. Okay, not not in the not in the long term. Um, it just it just exceeds physics, and it exceeds its physiology. The demands on the physiology of the dog, that this much mass and the demands it just makes on the dog shortens the dog's lifespan. Um, and I have said this before, and I'll continue to say it. We have a responsibility not only to the dogs to give that dog the best life that we can give it, but think about the customers, think about the people that want to buy the dogs. Um, man, I don't want to breed dogs that I knowingly am selling to people that have very much shortened uh, lifespans. I mean, I man, at least 10 to 12 years, right? At least 10 to 12 years. It's there shouldn't be questions about whether these dogs can live that long. Barring obviously catastrophic incidences, but to me, it's very much it's it's very much a vanity project, if I had a way to describe it. This is all about ego. This is all about pushing an animal past its practical envelope. Um, and I'm really concerned that the dog is going to survive. Okay. Um, Now, and when I say the dog will survive, um, I'm talking about will the dog survive in its current form? When you have a genetic population collapse, whether it creates a big problem. Will there be still old school dogs out there? Yes, there will be old school dogs out there because there are a bunch of people. Again, like I said, those people that live in the South uh, that love their old school dogs, that still breed those old school bloodlines for that very reason. Okay. They're functional. They live a long time. They don't have health problems. They can breathe. There's a whole litany of reasons why those dogs are superior to the dogs that are being produced today, by and large. Okay. But there are those of us um, and people that I mostly mess with that focus on and breed those types of dogs. Um, Again, like I said, I am very judicious in my use of any Dax blood, uh, and again, focus mostly on the old school blood. I mix a little bit of it together. You know, it's like I have a line of old school dogs. I have a line of uh, and a line of a mix of those dogs, right? And then I have that that mix, if you will, is kind of my outcross to the old school dogs. And so I very carefully weave those things together. As many of you know, I do inbreeding coefficient analysis for people. I model breedings, things like that for people. And so when I look at things and things that I do, I run all of those numbers and I look at those things and I look at my percentages and I make sure my inbreeding coefficients have sufficient genetic variability in there that help improve the health and longevity of the dogs. So, I'm fortunate that I have the knowledge and I have the ability to be able to do that. And so um, I'm very much focused on uh, trying to create quality dogs. Here in my yard, for people, and I guess I'm from the South. I just prefer more uh, of an old school type dog. What um, I do prefer an old school dog with a little bit more of a modern head, but definitely not a bulldog head. Um, so and when I said there are people um, that are doing what they're doing because they just don't know any better, right? They're following along, right? They have a person that they look up to or whatever that's maybe they're real successful, maybe they're making a lot of money or whatever. Oh, I'm going to be like him. I'm going to do what he does without knowing that what that person in a broader sense is doing is actually harmful to the breed. What we need more breeders who don't feel like they have to follow along to still be successful, to still breed good dogs, to put a little bit more effort into their breeding pairs, to their selection, the type of dogs that the studs that they seek out. You don't have to breed what everybody else is breeding. As a matter of fact, for the sake of the breed, I encourage you not to breed what everyone else is breeding. Okay. Um, And if you don't show dogs, this really doesn't matter. Um, but if you do, think about this. When you take your dog out into the show ring, that judge, by and large, does not know what that dog's breeding is. He's comparing that dog to the standard. Okay. So if you get familiar with the standard and you breed towards that with dogs that are high percentage legacy blood dogs, old school type dogs, or dogs with low percentages of DAX, with that little bit more modern look, that kind of thing. If you seek out help, if you seek out counsel, mentorship, whatever, but if you can walk that fine line between those two worlds and still produce quality dogs, then you can have a healthy dog and a dog that also satisfies kind of the phenotype that they're looking for in the show ring. Okay. And I believe that that can be done. Um, that's our goal here at Dubtown Bullies. That's what we're doing. And I know other camps, that are doing it, but, we'll see how that goes. I, I mean, I'm a pretty stubborn guy, I keep dragging my dogs to the show ring, and hopefully we'll keep doing okay, and we'll stay competitive at some point in time. If our type of dog is no longer appreciated by the ABKC, then we may have to move. We may have to move registries to uh, the UKC or the WBA that appreciates more of a correct dog, and one that appreciates movement, that appreciates conformation, and that doesn't just look for extreme features. Okay, so there is a there is a civil war raging for for a lack of a better way to put it, the soul of the American bully, and unfortunately, the dog is caught in the middle. But I apologize. Let me get back to what I was saying about um, population collapse, right? Um, if uh, the extreme world, if you will, if the North wins the war, I worry about the longevity of our breed. These dogs won't live very long. Everybody's breeding the same stuff. For long, they won't have any dogs to breed to, because everybody's doing the same thing. So then you'll get super high inbreeding coefficients, dogs that get smaller. It'll be harder for the dogs to produce. It won't have as big of litters. Have a difficult time, even getting pregnant, that kind of thing. And eventually, basically, what then the breed collapses. There's no dogs. There's no dogs, there to sustain the breed. And so it's we're at a very tenuous time, I believe, in our breed. And I hope that there are enough people out there uh, who believe that the American Bully is such a wonderful dog that we owe it to the dog. We owe it its preservation, its progression um, within what I would consider to be normal limits. Look, I mean, even if the dog doesn't change anymore, dog doesn't need, my opinion, dog doesn't need to get bigger. The dog does need to get better. Okay. Conformation, so structure, right? movement, minor tweaks, things like that, things in appearance, just small things, right? We're a long way from having a large population that looks very similar. I mean, German Shepherds look like German Shepherds, Rottweilers look like Rottweilers. Small variations, but obviously the same dog every time you look at it, right? Um, we're nowhere close to that, right? We can't even breed pockets to pockets, standards to standards, XLs to XLs, and get pockets or standards or XLs. We're getting different sizes out of, you know, there'll be standards out of two pocket breeding, right? Or we'll get pockets out of two standards, okay? And it's because during the development of the breed and the genetics and things like that, and the breed's not that old, and those things are still going to pop up. So what we need is, well, is that we need time, right? There needs to be time for that kind of development, that kind of consistency. Breeding pockets to pockets, standards to standards, XLs to XLs, kind of thing. Now the XL issue is a whole another issue, but we need that kind of consistency in the breed. We don't need to be continuing to add more variables on top of more variables when we haven't even really got the basics worked out. And when I say the basics, I'm just talking about the structure, you know, of the dog, the movement of the dog, and the overall general appearance of the dog. We don't have near enough consistency yet. And so I'm of the opinion that the dog just doesn't need to get bigger. 100 pound, 100 to 105 pound standard dog is just big enough, you know? And so I don't know. I guess we'll see who wins the war. For the sake of the dog, I hope it's the South in this particular Civil War. Um, and look, guys, I mostly, except for this time in this platform when I speak about my personal feelings, I stay out of the arguments. Okay, I don't critique people's dogs. Unless I'm asked. I don't make ugly comments. I just don't do that. I think it's a bad look. I think it's bad for business. Um, I, it's, and it's not that I haven't picked a side. I have picked a side, but um, you don't, you don't have to be ugly about it. There's a way to go about it with some thoughtfulness and some class, and just kind of stay in your own lane, do your work, and through your actions, successes, leadership, things like that, maybe you'll influence some other people in following along. And when they ask you, what you're doing, here's why you're doing it, and maybe they'll see, maybe they'll understand, maybe they'll change the way that they're thinking. I think that obviously the the biggest way to change some things is to have that success in the show ring with dogs that are bred differently. And so how do you do that? Well, you gotta have a good eye for a dog. You gotta be able to put the right two dogs together. That's breeding is not easy. So there's the pedigree analysis. There's understanding the bloodlines. There's understanding the differences in the dogs, what one needs, the other one lacks, so on. And then, you put them together and you hope that things work out. And then the important part is then when you have those puppies and everything, is picking the right puppy that moves your program forward, that you can put in the show ring. Okay. And if you don't know how to do that, if you don't feel like you're good at doing that, ask somebody that you trust and respect for some help. Okay. If you can't get any help there, come ask me. I'll help. You know, I mean, um, we don't have years and years and years of producing dogs, to put on, to put in front of people and that kind of thing. But um, I have, as puppies, picked out three dogs that have become three three of my dogs that have become champions, and um, I'm pretty good at picking out dogs. Got a good eye for a dog, but I developed that eye through showing and breeding horses, and so very similar. And so if you can't find somebody to help you, hit me up. We'll look at the dog, and so on. But again, I don't just offer my opinions. So, but if you can't find somebody to help you, hit me up. I'll see if I can help you. But I just want uh, I just want us to breed good dogs so we can put those good dogs in loving families and they can enjoy that dog. They can go to the park and play with that dog. They can take that dog for a hike, for a walk, or whatever, and it's not gonna keel over and die on them, or it's not gonna last, or that it'll last more than 20 minutes, uh, kind of things. You know, and of course we have other varieties that are just not even made for that. These, the micros, exotics, and such, and that's a whole nother topic we're not going to get into tonight. But so for those of you that follow and that are involved in the community and everything, I know you hear, this stuff, uh, and what's going on, and maybe you sense it and maybe you don't. But there's definitely a battle taking place out there, and I hear and I feel the change. I feel the winds kind of changing direction. I hear people who didn't used to talk about this stuff start to talk about the importance of the dogs being more correct, being healthier, so on. So I'm liking what I'm hearing. I wish I would hear it from maybe people who are a little bit more quote unquote prominent in our breed. But I guess we fight the battles that need fighting, and then hopefully we fight enough of those that maybe the South will rise again, right? I mean, you never know. They lost the first battle, but maybe we can win. Maybe we can win the second one. So, yeah, I bet he does take you for a walk, Eric. But damn cats. Sorry, guys. Freaking cat. Um, sorry. Um, so anyway, so we're gonna wrap it up tonight. Apologize for Joe. This hopefully we can reschedule him. Um, if not, if we can't get him on here in a couple of weeks, we'll get somebody else to sit here and we'll talk about dogs and other things. So why I'm having internet issues tonight, but anyway, so I appreciate So anyway, we'll catch you back here on a Saturday night in a couple of weeks. So we'll catch you in a couple of weeks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.